It was supposed to be a simple drive, a quiet morning on the open road, just me and the hum of the highway. But a wrong turn and an empty tank left me stranded in a town that felt like it had been waiting for me. The silence there was heavy, the kind that clings to your skin, and the looks I got said more than words ever could. I thought asking for help was the smart move. I didn't know it would turn into the longest few minutes of my life. I started the drive before sunrise, leaving Atlanta in my old black Honda Accord. I'd been meaning to visit my mom in Memphis for weeks, and with work slowing down, I figured now was the time. The car smelled faintly of coffee and worn leather. My phone sat on the passenger seat, screen glowing with the map, 5 hours of open road. Easy. The interstate stretched like a ribbon under the pale dawn. Semi-trucks thundered past, their taillights blinking red in the gray light. I kept the music low, some old-school R&B humming through the speakers. For a while, it was just me, the hum of tires, and the occasional green highway sign promising food and gas. About 2 hours in, I noticed the fuel gauge dipping close to empty. I took the next exit, a narrow 2-lane road leading into what looked like a small town. It was quiet, too quiet. Rows of faded brick buildings with peeling paint, an old diner with a flickering, open, sign, and an empty sheriff's car parked by the courthouse. No people, no movement. Just the kind of silence that presses on your skin. I spotted a gas station at the far end of the main road. It looked old, maybe from the 70s, with rust creeping up the pumps and a small, grimy window under a sign that read, Wilmer's Fuel. No other cars. I pulled in and cut the engine. The wind carried a faint smell of oil and something metallic, maybe blood, maybe just rust. Hard to tell. As I got out, the air felt heavier, thicker somehow. I slid my card into the pump, but the screen was blank. Dead. I sighed and walked toward the window. Inside, a man stood behind the counter. White guy, late 50s, maybe older. Thick beard, cap pulled low. He didn't smile. Didn't even nod. Just stared as I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Pump not working, I said, keeping my tone light. He looked at me for a long second before speaking. Cash only. I hesitated. I don't have cash. Any ATMs around? Nope. His voice was flat, like gravel. He didn't blink. I felt my stomach tighten. Okay. Guess I'll just. Before I could finish, another man came in through a door at the back. Younger, maybe 30, with a Confederate flag patch on his denim vest. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me. No words. Just, looking. Something in my chest shifted then, a quiet warning. I nodded quickly, turned, and walked out. I'd figure something out. Maybe another town, another station. But when I slid back into the car and turned the key, the engine coughed, sputtered, and died. I tried again. Same thing. The gauge sat on empty. My heart thudded against my ribs as I realized I wasn't going anywhere. I glanced up. The older man had stepped outside now, standing by the doorway with his hands in his pockets. The younger one joined him, leaning on the doorframe. Both just staring at me. Silent. Waiting. And the road behind me? Empty as far as I could see. No cars, no sound. Just the wind picking up, dry and cold, rattling the rusted sign above the station. My phone had no bars. I checked twice, 3 times. Nothing. No signal. That's when the older man started walking toward my car, slow, steady, like he had all the time in the world. I locked the doors and gripped the steering wheel, my breath coming hard. He stopped a few feet from the hood, bent slightly, and looked straight at me through the windshield. His lips curled into the smallest smile I'd seen all morning. It wasn't friendly. And behind him, the younger man had disappeared. but I could still feel him. Somewhere close. The older man didn't move for a while, just stood there, smiling faintly like he knew something I didn't. My hands were slick on the steering wheel, my pulse in my ears louder than the wind outside. I thought about getting out, asking for help again, but something deep inside told me that would be the worst mistake I could make. Then I heard it. A faint tap on the rear window. I froze. Slowly, I looked in the rearview mirror. The younger man was standing behind the car now, leaning low, his face almost level with the glass. He wasn't smiling. Just staring, eyes wide and unblinking, like he was studying an animal caught in a trap. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't move. Didn't even blink. The older man finally spoke, his voice low, calm, too calm. "You're out of gas," he said, almost like he was amused. I didn't answer. "We can help," he continued, tilting his head slightly. "But you're gonna have to come inside." His tone sent a sharp chill through me. My fingers fumbled for my phone again. Still no signal. I glanced at the open road beyond the station, empty except for the shimmering heat rising off the asphalt. No cars, no sound, no way out. "Look," I said through the glass, forcing my voice steady. "I'll pay you later. I just need a couple gallons to get to the next town." He smiled wider this time, but there was nothing warm about it. "Ain't how it works here." The younger man let out a low chuckle behind me, the sound muffled through the glass. I didn't dare turn around, but I felt him move closer, felt his shadow stretching across the back seat. My chest tightened until every breath hurt. "Pop the hood," the older man said. "What?" My voice cracked. "Pop the hood." He didn't raise his voice, but the way he said it made the hair on my arms stand on end. I didn't move. I couldn't. My mind scrambled for options, for anything. Then, slowly, he leaned down, so close I could see the deep lines carved into his face, the flecks of gray in his beard. His eyes locked on mine. "You don't want us to come in there," he said softly. "Do you?" The question hung in the air like a threat, heavy and suffocating. Before I could respond, the younger man yanked on the back door handle. It didn't open, thank God, but the sound jolted through me like an electric shock. He jiggled it again, harder this time, laughing under his breath. My heart slammed so hard I thought it might break my ribs. I threw the car in neutral and twisted the key one last time, praying, begging under my breath. The engine coughed, sputtered, and roared to life. I didn't think. I didn't look. I slammed my foot on the gas, gravel spitting under the tires as the car lurched forward. The older man stepped back fast, his expression twisting into something dark, something I never want to see again. In the mirror, I saw the younger man stumble, then chase after me for a few feet before stopping, hands on his hips, watching me speed down that empty road. The fuel light was still blinking. I didn't know how far I could go. I just knew I couldn't stop. Not there. Not anywhere near there. And for miles, I kept checking the mirror, waiting to see headlights that never came. But every time I blinked, I swore I could still feel their eyes on me. It was supposed to be a family trip, music, laughter, and a few hours of open road. But one wrong turn led us to a gas station that time forgot, a place that felt like it had been waiting for us. The silence there wasn't empty, it was watching, breathing. We thought the car breaking down was the worst thing that could happen. We were wrong. We left Birmingham just after lunch, the sun high and unforgiving as we packed into the SUV. My wife sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her playlist, and the kids were in the back, arguing over snacks like it was the end of the world. We were headed to visit her parents in Little Rock, a 5-hour drive that felt like nothing compared to what it took just to get time off work. It should have been an easy trip. That's what I kept telling myself. The first couple of hours were smooth, green hills rolling by, long stretches of road, and the kind of clouds that looked painted on. The AC hummed low, filling the car with a comfortable chill. Every now and then, my wife would laugh at something on her phone, and for a while, it felt like a regular Saturday. Then I noticed the gas gauge dipping. It wasn't urgent yet, but enough to make me start looking for signs. That's when I saw one, next gas, 12 miles. No problem, I thought. Until the highway narrowed and spat us out onto a 2-lane road that wound through nothing but trees and abandoned barns. When we finally saw the station, it looked wrong. Old, almost forgotten, like something out of a photo from the 60s that should have stayed in a photo album. One flickering fluorescent light buzzed over a single pump. The canopy was rusted through, holes in the metal casting strange shadows on the concrete. Behind it sat a squat brick building with a faded sign that read Miller's Fuel and Supply. No other cars. No sound except cicadas screeching in the heat. "Daddy, I'm hungry," my youngest whined. I forced a smile and told him we'd grab something inside. But my stomach was tight, and not just from hunger. I got out slowly, the air thick and heavy like wet wool. The pump was so old it didn't even take cards, just a metal lever and a dial. I walked toward the door, pushing it open with a groan of rusty hinges. Inside, the air smelled like dust and something sweet, almost rotten. 2 men stood behind the counter. Both white, both staring. One was older, bald with a neck like tree bark, his eyes pale and empty. The other was younger, maybe my age, his arms crossed over a stained t-shirt, jaw working like he was chewing on nothing. Neither said a word. I cleared my throat. "Need to get some gas." The older man's lips stretched into something like a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Cash only," he said. "Sure," I replied, pulling out my wallet. My hands felt clumsy. "How much for a full tank?" "Depends," he said. "Depends on what?" His smile widened. "On who's a skinned dot." Behind me, the door creaked. I turned just in time to see a woman step in, thin, sunburned, holding a baby on her hip. She didn't look at me. Just walked past, but the smell of sour milk lingered in the air as she disappeared into a back room. I slid a couple of 20s across the counter. The younger guy didn't move. Just stared. Finally, the older one took the bills, slow as molasses, like he was making a point. He dropped a single key on the counter, attached to a wooden block with "pump" carved into it. "Fill her up," he said. I walked out fast, the back of my neck prickling. The sun was lower now, shadows stretching long across the empty road. My wife was watching me through the windshield, her face tight with questions. I tried to give her a look that said it was fine. But as I started pumping, I noticed something that made my throat dry. The trees across the road weren't empty anymore. There were people standing there. 5, maybe 6 of them. Men, women, even a kid. All just standing, half in the trees, half in the clearing, watching us. Not moving. Not talking. Just watching. The pump clicked, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. Full tank. I yanked the nozzle out, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped it. When I turned to hang it back, I saw the younger man had stepped outside. He was leaning on the doorframe, arms still crossed, his mouth curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. I got in the car and locked the doors before my hand even hit the ignition. My wife's voice was tight. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Let's go." But when I turned the key, the engine sputtered once, then died. I tried again. Same sound. And when I looked up, those people in the trees? They were closer now. The engine wouldn't turn over. Each time I twisted the key, it coughed and gave up like it was mocking me. My wife's hand gripped my arm, nails digging into my skin. The kids had gone quiet in the back, too quiet. That's what scared me most. They felt it too. "Daddy," my oldest whispered, voice trembling. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "It's fine, baby. Just a little engine trouble." My voice cracked on the last word. Outside, the younger man hadn't moved. Still leaning against the doorframe, arms folded, eyes locked on us. But then the older one stepped out, slow, deliberate, like a man with all the time in the world. His boots crunched on the gravel. He stopped a few feet from the hood, head tilting slightly. "Car trouble," he called out. His tone was almost friendly, and that made it worse. I cracked the window an inch. "It's fine. We'll figure it out." "Not much to figure," he said. "Ain't gonna start without a little help." The way he said it twisted in my gut. Before I could answer, a sound came from behind us, a low thud, like something hitting the bumper. I jerked around. One of the people from the tree line, a man with a dirty baseball cap, was standing behind the SUV now, grinning. His teeth were yellow, lips chapped. He slapped the back of the car again, slow, like he was testing it. My wife's breath hitched. "Lock the doors," she whispered. Her hand was already on the button, but it didn't matter, we'd done that. We'd done that 10 minutes ago. The older man crouched slightly, resting his hands on his knees like he was talking to a child. "Tell you what," he said softly. "Why don't you come inside, let the young uns cool off while we take a look?" I shook my head. "We're good." He straightened, that smile never touching his eyes. I wasn't a skinned dot. Something shifted in the corner of my vision. I looked toward the trees, and my stomach turned to stone. The people who'd been standing there weren't in the clearing anymore. They were gone. Vanished without a sound. The younger man finally stepped off the porch, slow and easy, his boots leaving pale marks in the dust. He circled toward the driver's side, dragging something along the ground. It took me a second to see what it was, a crowbar, scraping the gravel with a sound that made my teeth ache. My wife whispered, "Please, just drive." Her voice cracked like thin glass. I twisted the key again, praying under my breath. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. I didn't think. I slammed my foot on the gas so hard the SUV leapt forward, tires spitting rocks. The older man jumped back, his smile breaking into something darker, something that made my blood run cold. In the mirror, I saw the younger one take a swing at the back window with the crowbar. It didn't break, thank God, but the sound of metal hitting glass stayed in my head long after we tore down that empty road. We didn't stop. Not for miles. Not until we saw the glow of headlights in the distance, a convoy of semis barreling down the highway. I merged so fast I nearly clipped one, but I didn't care. I needed witnesses. I needed people. The kids were crying. My wife was silent, staring straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might shatter. When I finally looked in the rearview mirror, the road behind us was empty. No station. No figures. Just the dark, stretching on forever. But I swear, every time the tires hummed against the asphalt, I heard it under the noise. That slow, steady scrape of metal on gravel. And I knew they weren't done with us yet. We thought taking the scenic route would save us time, a quiet drive home through back roads and farmland. But with the sun sinking low and the map leading us deeper into nowhere, the signs started showing up. Warnings that weren't just about trespassing, but about who didn't belong. By the time the headlights appeared behind us, it was already too late to turn back. We left Charlotte late in the afternoon, chasing the tail end of summer sunlight as the highway stretched endlessly ahead. My wife, Monique, had her bare feet propped on the dash, scrolling through pictures from our weekend getaway. We'd needed the break, both of us tired from work, from life, from everything. The drive home should have been quiet, easy. The road wound through hills and farmland, patches of trees flashing past like old film frames. We were supposed to stay on I-85, but when the GPS pinged about heavy traffic, I took the detour it suggested, a smaller state road cutting through what looked like miles of nothing. At first, it was fine. 2-lane blacktop, no traffic, just field stretching to the horizon. But as the sun started dipping low, the light turned orange and long shadows slid across the road. The houses we passed were old, some barely standing, their paint bleached gray by years of sun. No cars in the driveways. No kids playing outside. Just silence. About an hour in, Monique noticed the first sign. It was nailed crooked to a tree, no trespassing. We don't call 911. Red letters on white wood, faded but clear enough. She shifted in her seat, her smile gone. "Where are we?" she asked. "Shortcut," I said, trying to sound casual. "GPS says it saves us 20 minutes. Her eyes stayed on the window, on the dark stretch of road disappearing into the trees. "Feels wrong," she whispered. We drove on, and the signs kept coming. Bigger ones now. Hand-painted boards that read private road and keep out. One had a cartoon of a snarling dog with red paint dripping from its teeth. I laughed nervously and told her people out here just liked their privacy. But inside, something was tightening, coil by coil. Then we saw it, a truck. Rust red, sitting in a field off the road. At first, I thought it was abandoned, until the driver's door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, broad, wearing a cap pulled low. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just stood there, one hand resting on the edge of the door as we passed. I checked the mirror. He was still watching us. A few minutes later, I saw headlights. In the mirror again, far back at first, then closer. A pickup. Could have been anyone, I told myself. But when I slowed for a sharp curve, so did they. When I sped up, they stayed with me. Why is he following us? Monique's voice was tight now, barely above a whisper. "It's just a road," I said, but I didn't believe it. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. Another sign appeared on the right, this one bigger than the rest, "This is white land. Keep driving." My throat went dry. The truck's lights filled the rear window now, glaring into the car, so close I could see the grille, the mud splattered across the bumper. The driver leaned forward, his silhouette hulking behind the wheel. Then another truck pulled onto the road ahead of us. No lights. Just rolled out slow from a dirt lane and stopped dead, blocking the way. Monique's breath hitched, sharp and fast. And in that moment, with one truck behind us and one in front, I realized the GPS hadn't saved us any time. It had led us exactly where they wanted us to be. The road was so narrow there wasn't room to turn around without backing into the ditch, and the truck behind us knew it. Its headlights burned through the rear glass like a spotlight, engine idling low and mean. The one ahead didn't move either, just sat there, a shadow against the deepening orange sky. Monique's hand clutched mine hard enough to hurt. "What do we do?" Her voice was a shaky whisper, barely holding together. I swallowed hard, forcing my thoughts to line up. Options. There had to be options. I shifted into reverse, thinking maybe I could back up far enough to whip into one of those dirt lanes we'd passed. But the truck behind inched forward, closing the gap so tight I could hear its tires crunching gravel. "They're playing with us," I muttered before I could stop myself. The driver in front finally climbed out. Tall, heavy boots hitting pavement with a dull thud. He wore a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hands empty but swinging loose at his sides. He walked toward us slow, like he had nowhere to be. Monique whispered my name, her nails digging crescents into my skin. I cracked the window an inch. "We're just passing through," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. The man stopped a few feet from the hood, head tilting slightly, like I was a stray dog on his porch. He smiled then, thin, cold, a smile that said everything and nothing all at once. "Roads closed," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Behind us, a door slammed. I glanced in the mirror. The second driver was out now too, walking toward the back of our car, something long and metallic glinting in his hand. Crowbar, maybe a tire iron, I couldn't tell. My heart was pounding so loud I almost missed the sound, footsteps in the ditch to the right. Another man, rising out of the weeds like he'd been lying there waiting. Then another on the left. Both holding flashlights, beams cutting through the dusk, sweeping across the car like searchlights. Monique's breath came in sharp gasps. "Baby, please." I jammed the car in reverse, praying for traction, praying for anything. The tires spun in gravel, squealing like an animal in pain. The man in front didn't move. Just stood there, smiling that dead smile, as if daring me to hit him. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and made a motion, a simple flick of the wrist. And the beams of the flashlight started moving faster, circling us, until the inside of the car pulsed with white light, shadows spinning like a carousel. The sound of boots on gravel closed in, voices low and laughing, too many to count now. "Open the door," a voice drawled from somewhere behind the glare. I couldn't breathe. My fingers twisted the key so hard I thought it might snap, and then, by some miracle, the engine roared to life. I slammed the gearshift forward and hit the gas with everything I had. The SUV lurched, gravel spitting like bullets. The man in front dove to the side as we shot past, the mirror missing him by inches. For a split second, I saw his face in the sunset glow, smiling still, like he knew this wasn't over. We tore down that road at 60, maybe 70, the headlights behind us flaring up, chasing for what felt like forever. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, they were gone. No lights. No sound. Just darkness swallowing everything behind us. When we hit the main highway, Monique started sobbing, and I realized I'd been holding my breath the entire time. I kept driving, all the way to the city lights, and even then, I didn't stop. Couldn't. Because in my bones, I felt it, that road wasn't empty anymore. It had our names now. We thought we were just taking a shortcut, a quiet detour through the backroads to save some time. But the deeper we drove, the quieter it got, until the only sound was our own breathing and the tires on cracked asphalt. Then the signs started, then the trucks, and finally the men stepping out of the trees. By the time we realized what was happening, there was no way to turn around. We left Nashville just after dawn, 3 of us packed into my old Honda Civic, laughing about nothing and everything as the interstate stretched out ahead. Me, Tasha, and Kim, we'd been planning this trip for months, just a long weekend down in Savannah. Good food, good music, and time away from everything waiting for us back home. The first few hours were easy. Golden sunlight spilling across the dashboard, gospel on the radio, coffee in our cups. We stopped at a scenic overlook, took a few selfies, and joked about how we were finally living like the carefree women we'd always wanted to be. No deadlines, no stress, just the road. But somewhere past Macon, the GPS glitched. Signal dropped, and the soft blue dot froze on the screen. We figured it out on paper. Kim pulled up an offline map she'd saved, and it showed a smaller road that would cut at least 30 minutes off. I should have known better. At first, it felt peaceful. The trees pressed in close, green leaves catching slices of sun like stained glass. But then the houses started showing up. Old, sagging things with warped porches and junk cars scattered like bones across yellowed grass. Confederate flags faded but still hanging from splintered poles. Shot-up stop signs, bullet holes rusted at the edges. Nobody said anything for a while, but the laughter was gone. About 20 minutes in, we saw the first truck. Parked at an angle on the shoulder, engine off, hood up like it was broken down. A man stood beside it, leaning against the grill, cigarette dangling from his lips. He didn't wave. Didn't move. Just watched as we rolled past. I told myself it was nothing. Just a guy in his truck. Then we saw another. This one pulled halfway into a dirt driveway, engine running. A different man, sitting behind the wheel, both hands gripping it like he was holding something steady. His eyes followed us the whole way down the road. "Y'all feel that?" Tasha whispered, barely moving her lips. "Feel what?" Kim said, though her voice was tight. "Like, somebody's watching us." Nobody laughed. Nobody said she was being dramatic. Because we all felt it. Then came the sign. Nailed crooked to a tree at the edge of the road, "Keep driving or else." Big red letters on warped wood. Kim cursed under her breath. Why would somebody? "Don't," I said. My throat felt dry. "Just, don't." We drove on, the road narrowing, the trees bending low like they wanted to close over us. Then headlights appeared in the mirror. A truck. Rusted red, crawling slow at first, then faster. Close enough that I could see the grill, the mud-streaked bumper. "Maybe he just wants to pass," Kim whispered. But he didn't pass. He stayed locked on our tail, matching every move. When I sped up, so did he. When I slowed, his headlights burned brighter, pressing close enough that the glare filled the whole car. And then another truck appeared ahead of us. Pulling out from a side road, moving slow, almost casual, until it blocked the lane. Kim's voice cracked. "What do we do?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because that's when I saw the men. Not just the drivers, others, stepping out from the tree line, one by one, like they'd been waiting there the whole time. No sound. No words. Just boots on gravel and eyes that never left us. I gripped the wheel so hard my fingers went numb. And in that heavy silence, I realized we weren't lost anymore. We were trapped. The truck ahead rolled to a stop, angled across both lanes like a barricade. The one behind crept closer, its engine rumbling deep and steady. I could feel the vibration in my chest. The men by the trees were moving now, slow and deliberate, spreading out like a net closing in. Tasha's nails dug into my shoulder. "Turn around," she hissed. "I can't," I said, voice breaking. The ditch on either side was deep, lined with jagged roots. If I tried, we'd flip. The lead truck's door swung open. A man stepped out, big frame filling the road, cap pulled low over his eyes. His shirt was stained with something dark, maybe oil, maybe not. He walked toward us without hurry, like this was routine, like he'd done it before. Behind us, the second driver killed his engine. Silence slammed down, thick as concrete. I heard the creak of boots on gravel, the crunch of someone dragging something metal across the road. Then voices, low, muffled laughter that made my stomach twist. "Roll your window up," Kim whispered, her breath hot against my ear. But it was already up. Every door locked. Not that it mattered. The man in front stopped a few feet from the hood. He bent low, resting one hand on the metal, and looked straight at me through the glass. His eyes were pale, washed out, like river stones. And then he smiled. "You lost?" he asked. His voice was soft, almost kind. That made it worse. I gripped the wheel, trying to keep my face blank, praying he couldn't hear my heart pounding. Just trying to get back to the highway. "That so?" His smile widened, teeth yellow in the dying light. "Highway's a long way from here." A thud made us all jump, something hitting the back of the car. I whipped around. Another man stood behind us, tapping the trunk with a length of chain, slow and steady, like he had all night. Kim whimpered. Tasha whispered something I couldn't catch, maybe a prayer. The man at the hood straightened, rolled his shoulders, and stepped closer. His hand closed around the edge of my door handle. Gave it a slow, deliberate tug. The lock held, for now. My hands moved before my brain did. Gearshift slammed into reverse. Tires screeched against gravel as I floored it, the car jerking backward hard enough to throw Kim against the seatbelt. The man behind jumped back, cursing. I didn't stop. I spun the wheel, clipping the ditch, tires spitting rocks and dirt, the whole car lurching like it might flip, but it didn't. The men shouted now, voices sharp and angry. The lead truck roared to life. Headlights flared behind us. I hit the gas so hard the engine screamed, every nerve in my body screaming with it. The road blurred under us, trees whipping past like black bars. The trucks followed, their beams slicing through the dark, horns blaring. They stayed with us for miles, closing in every time the road curved. My arms ached from gripping the wheel, but I didn't dare slow down. Then, like a miracle, I saw it, a green highway sign glowing in the distance. I took the ramp so fast the car fishtailed, tires shrieking as we hit the main road. Headlights streamed past, a river of cars and semis. Safety. Witnesses. People. When I checked the mirror, the trucks were gone. Just gone. No lights, no sound. Like they'd melted back into the trees. We drove in silence for an hour before anyone spoke. Kim's voice was raw. Do you think they would've? Don't, I said. My hands were still shaking. And in the hum of the highway, with taillights stretching like red scars ahead of us, I realized something that made my stomach twist all over again. That road didn't just want us gone. It wanted us to remember. It was supposed to be a victory drive home after a college debate tournament, music, laughter, and an open road. But one wrong turn took us off the highway and into a place where the rules felt different, where the signs weren't warnings so much as promises. When the headlights appeared behind us, then in front of us, we knew this wasn't about getting lost. It was about being hunted. We were coming back from a college debate tournament in Raleigh, 5 of us crammed into a borrowed minivan, still laughing about how we'd crushed the final round. It was late, close to midnight, the kind of darkness that feels heavier than usual. Our advisor, Mr. Lewis, was asleep in the passenger seat, his head bobbing with every bump in the road. I had the wheel, windows cracked, cool air rushing in as the others dozed off in the back. The GPS warned about construction on the main interstate, so I took the suggested detour, some state highway that twisted through the countryside like a loose thread. At first, it felt peaceful, open fields under a sky full of stars, the hum of the tires blending with faint music from the radio. But soon, the road narrowed, the asphalt cracked and faded, and the trees crowded closer like walls. About 30 minutes in, the first sign appeared, "No Outsiders After Dark." Black letters on warped plywood nailed to a fence post. I slowed, the headlights washing over the words like a secret I wasn't meant to see. "Y'all see that?" I whispered. Tasha leaned forward from the back. "What does that even mean?" "Means keep driving," I said, trying to make it sound like a joke. Nobody laughed. The next sign was worse, "You've been warned." Painted in dripping red letters across an old sheet stretched between 2 trees. The fabric fluttered as we passed, the letters looking wet in the beam of the headlights. My chest felt tight. I told myself it was just rural folks being dramatic, but deep down, something was coiling, slow and cold. A few miles later, the road forked. GPS showed both ways empty, just 2 gray lines stretching into black. I picked the left, figuring it had to reconnect eventually. For a while, it did. Then the pavement turned to gravel, crunching under the tires like bones. That's when I saw the first truck. Parked off to the side, engine off, windows black. I glanced at it as we passed, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone inside, just a pale shape, motionless. "Bro," Malik muttered from the back, "why's it feel like a horror movie out here?" I didn't answer. Because the mirror showed headlights now. Not the truck we passed, another one, pulling onto the road behind us, creeping closer with every turn. My palms were slick on the wheel. I pressed the gas. The truck matched me, its beams burning through the rear glass like twin suns. Then came another set of lights. Ahead this time, far off at first, then closer. Another truck, rolling slow, like it had all night. "We're boxed in," Tasha whispered, her voice barely audible. Mr. Lewis stirred, blinked at the road, then at me. "Everything okay?" I opened my mouth to answer, but that's when I saw it, nailed to a tree just before the next bend. "Turn around or die." The letters were big enough to see in the dark. And when I checked the mirror, the truck behind wasn't creeping anymore. It was coming fast. The truck behind gunned its engine, a deep, guttural roar that rattled the windows. The headlights swelled in the mirror, so bright I could barely see the road. Ahead, the second truck slowed to a crawl, straddling the center line like a predator blocking its prey. "Don't stop," Malik said, voice shaking. "Whatever you do, don't stop." I didn't plan to. My foot pressed the gas so hard the pedal might as well have been the floor. Gravel spat from the tires as the van surged forward, engine whining like a scream. The road curved hard right, the trees pressing in so close their branches clawed the windows. The truck behind didn't back off. It lunged with us, its grille flashing in the mirror like metal teeth. I swore I saw shapes in the back, two men standing in the bed, shadows against the glare of our taillights, something long and heavy glinting in their hands. "Call 911. I shouted. No signal. Tasha yelled back, holding up her phone. The second truck ahead slowed even more, rolling dead center now, like it wanted us to ram it. Its taillights burned a sinister red against the black road. Mr. Lewis sat forward, wide awake now. "Pull off. Find a driveway." "There are no driveways." My voice cracked. "There's nothing out here." Then, out of nowhere, floodlights exploded from the tree line on the left, white beams slicing through the dark, sweeping across the road. My heart stopped. Figures stood behind them, silhouettes lining the edge of the woods. I couldn't count them all. 5, 6, maybe more. They didn't move. Just watched. The lead truck braked suddenly, forcing me to swerve hard into the opposite lane. Tires screamed. The van fishtailed, the rear end swinging toward the ditch before I jerked it straight. For one breathless second, I thought we'd flip. That's when Malik shouted, "Another one." I looked left. A third truck roared out of a dirt path, slamming onto the road so close I felt the wind shove the van sideways. It lined up with the others, boxing us in completely. Panic took over. I yanked the wheel, cutting across the shoulder toward a gap in the trees. Branches whipped the hood as we barreled into the dark, bouncing over roots and rocks, the van howling like it was coming apart. Behind us, engines bellowed, tires crunching gravel as the trucks gave chase. "Where are you going?" Kim screamed. "I don't know." I yelled back. My hands were slick, my vision tunneling. Somehow, the trees thinned, and the headlights of the highway flared in the distance like a lighthouse in a storm. I floored it, the van leaping over a drainage ditch that nearly ripped off the muffler. Then, suddenly, pavement. We shot onto the shoulder of the highway in a shower of dirt and stones, horns blaring as semis swerved around us. I checked the mirror. Empty. No trucks. No lights. Just the black mouth of that road vanishing behind us. No one spoke for the next 30 miles. Even Mr. Lewis just stared straight ahead, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles looked like chalk. When we finally saw the glow of city lights, Natasha started crying. Soft at first, then harder, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. I kept driving. Past exits, past gas stations, past anything that looked like a reason to stop. Because deep down, I knew something none of us wanted to say out loud. They hadn't been chasing us just for fun. They'd been hurting us. And if we'd made one wrong move, if we'd turned down the wrong path, they would have finished what they started. Thanks so much for watching. Your support truly means the world to me. Every like, every comment helps this channel grow and keeps me going. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new upload. My dream right now is to reach 100 subscribers, and with your help, I know it's possible. See you in the next one.